A pilot who speaks out. What you don't know about flying. Ed Hewitt interviewed a pilot named Patrick Smith about his career and things that most of people don't know about flying. Below, you will hear a summary of his interview. When we contacted author, columnist, and pilot Patrick Smith to ask what he and fellow pilots could tell us about flying that we might not know, he responded with an emphatic, "Where do I begin?" We asked him about misconceptions about flying, what it's like to see the world from 35,000 feet, and what he has in common with the rest of us. Number 1. The plane flies itself, right? Not really. One of Smith's biggest pet peeves is a mistaken belief that even seasoned travelers seem hard-pressed to shake, that when a plane is on autopilot, it is flying itself, like some gargantuan Google car of the skies. "I'm not sure where the idea comes from," Smith said with a hint of exasperation. "It might be that pilots are our own worst enemies in this regard, as a lot of pilots are very enamored of the technology we use, and might say something like, 'We press these buttons and the plane flies itself.' And in one sense that is true, but people take it very literally. One of the most common statements I hear is that not only do the planes fly themselves, but they also land themselves, which Smith denied emphatically, noting that nearly all of the landings he participates in are almost entirely manual. "There is such a thing as an automation landing, but I see maybe a couple per year," he said. "Even with all the automation up and running, you're still always flying the plane. You're not necessarily steering with your hands on the wheel for the entire flight, but the automation only does what you tell it to do. And you have to tell it what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and where to do it. The way I describe it is that there are probably 6 or 7 different ways I can command a climb or descent using the automation, depending on the circumstances. The pilot has to determine all of that and then execute it, make necessary changes, and so on." Number 2. Turbulence is normal. When I first started writing and taking questions about flying, I was really startled by the number of people who are made anxious by rough air, because from our perspective it's normal, as Smith said. Not to be dismissive or too nonchalant about it, as it is true that every year a certain number of people are injured in encounters with turbulence. But typically it is because they weren't seat belted in when they should have been. So Smith is not spooked at all by what I sometimes think of as patrols in the sky. But when pressed to think about what does spook a pilot, he did have some concerns about how air turbulence is changing. "It's becoming more evident that climate change is increasing the number of encounters with unusually strong turbulence," he noted. "It stands to reason that if certain climatic patterns are exacerbated, there are going to be a lot of things that come together to make for a bumpier atmosphere." Number 3. Window or aisle. Somebody with an enthusiasm or vested interest in flying is always going to take the window seat, because they enjoy having that constant reminder that you are in this remarkable machine in the air. Over the years, you see so many cool things from the air. It is hard to know where to start. Flying over the Sahara Desert, seeing the icebergs in the North Atlantic, flying over the city of Istanbul, looking down at the pyramids, flying over the American West, or seeing the Northern Lights. Smith's book includes a list of the best things he has seen from the air, underlining his continued enthusiasm for seeing the planet from on high. But he also noted that pilots have a unique perspective on some of the more distressing landscapes on the planet, including disappearing rainforests, clear-cutting fires, and smog over major cities.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. We'll be landing in the airport in just a few minutes.
Thank you very much for listening.